Welcome. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni, the founder of Transformative Harmonics, a podcast that offers listeners a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Transformative Harmonics. Today's episode has a lot of rich information, so please take your time. Feel free to pause. Let this conversation linger for as long as you need. Today, I am meeting with someone who I've known since 2017. Both of us have a similar path of shepherding people through life, their awakening, and holding space to allow the integration of the physical, mental, emotional, and energetic aspects of being human to come together during this pivotal time. Kate is with us today to talk about culture, grief, death, and what it means to be human. Kate Appleton is a somatic psychotherapist, family consultant, and international educator with over 50 years of experience. She weaves together her background as a Waldorf special education teacher, spiritual director, and somatic attachment practitioner to support individuals, families, and practitioners in awakening embodied connection and relational healing. Kate's work explores the lingering effects of trauma, attachment patterns, and the disembodiment of modern life, guiding others towards belonging, purpose, and soulful integration. Through her educational programs, consulting, and retreats, she helps others rediscover the wisdom of the body, the power of story, and the sacred woven through everyday life. Kate also collaborates with international organizations to integrate sensory and somatic modalities that address the ruptures of modern culture, supporting families in transitions such as parenting across generations, building legacy values, navigating grief and loss, and restoring purpose and identity for emerging adults who feel adrift in a disconnected world. I am thrilled to have Kate with me today, and I hope you enjoy this shared fireside chat that Kate and I are having today. Welcome back to Transformative Harmonics. I'm here today to share with you a special guest who is dear to me, dear to my heart. But we're going to be sharing a little personal, but also a lot of, what we spend our time doing when we're not relaxing together in relationship. We're both busy people, doing lots of big work. And so I have the joy of sharing Kate Appleton's work with you today. So before we start, I'm going to invite you, as I usually do, to take a moment, if you haven't already, and to see if you can shift down one gear, maybe two, but certainly one, and just begin to arrive in the space with us, kind of like a fireside chat. And we'll be sharing some things that, maybe fit in your paradigm of your life, and there may be things that don't fit. They don't have a place to land. But the slowing down and feeling yourself in relationship with the chair or the seat or the ground gives you a little bit more space and time to really listen with your whole body to this conversation. And you're going to want to, because it's a special one. So I'll start by saying how thrilled and surprised I am that we are sitting here, because I actually had another guest who pulled out at the last minute. And I texted Kate. We tried to do this a few times, and it just worked out so well. So we're both surprised and delighted to sit here. But Kate, dear Kate, I can't believe we're doing this. I'm so excited to hear what you've been doing. And what for me, the first question is, what have you been doing? Because I know I can't keep track of where you are right now. It's exciting. There's a lot going on. So I'd like to start there, and maybe the context actually for the listeners is that you and I know each other. We've known each other for quite a while, right? 2017. And we met at Steve Terrell's training. We were both somatic experiencing practitioners, and we were moving into touch work. And so you have a lot that has happened since that time. And all of that came with you on your journey. And now you are doing some amazing work with grief and death and eldership. So I'm going to pass it to you just to begin to share a little bit about what you've been doing since we last spoke and beginning to introduce your work with people.
Thank you. It's wonderful to join you. It's good to be here and reconnect too. And I know we've tried this before. It's so wonderful that it's happening now. So I'm glad to be here. Well, you know, my life is just, it's exciting. It's turned upside down. So I don't find myself doing as much psychotherapy with people anymore. I'm working internationally as a family consultant and an individual coach to help people to restore their souls, mostly inside their family unit in some way, which really involves relationships and how we navigate the terrain when we feel lost. How do we come home to ourselves and find ourselves inside relationships? Whether that is somebody who is what we call failure to launch, somebody in their 20s and they just can't seem to find life purpose. And they're at home and the family's worried about them. Or family estrangement, where either someone in their 70s and 80s are wanting to pass on a legacy and the kids in their 40s don't want it. They don't really see a purpose in it, given the state of the world. And yet the people in their 80s have worked really hard for that legacy. And it's not just money. It really is much more than money. It's meaning and purpose, and they don't know how to reach and connect to the young people. And they definitely don't know how to communicate to grandchildren. And the grandchildren don't really know how to find relationships because they're glued to a screen. And parents are lost in how to parent because they're anxious about the state of the world and they don't know how to reach their kids. And so there's a lot of grief across the generations. And, you know, a lot of people aren't finding solace in counseling anymore either. So when I wear a hat the way I'm wearing it now, I'm not just sitting and listening. I mean, of course I'm doing that. But I'm asking them deep, hard questions that are uncomfortable. And I see my role really now as the elder who really creates the space for the grief to be held and for us to be with the grief in a way that doesn't try to escape it.
Yes.
But to allow it to really be here and inform us so that we can find the hope and the love that is also here right alongside it. You know, grief work is, it's not about trying to escape it. It really is being present. And the other piece that often shows up in my work around all of this is the cultural piece. You know, we're at a time where we need moral courage like we've never needed it before. And at a time where coming home to the soul and finding connection there, it leaves most people without a map. They don't know how to do that. And I will say to them, well, it's less about the knowing and more about being present with uncertainty and being willing to be present with the I don't know. When we can do that and slow down long enough to really be present, we might find a way back to our rootedness And that's in humanity. It's in the essence that happens when we experience spirit inside form, and that then anchors to the earth and the earth elements. And, there's a hunger for that, but there's an awful lot of people untethered, unmoored, and they don't really know where to find that anchoring anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see my role as the elder that says it's okay, you don't have to know. What's more important is to be connected. If we can find the agency to reach for another and then be really present with another, then inside that mystery, what arrives is far more important than the story we are trying to tell ourselves about it. And so when they bring me a story full of tension and emotions, I want them to pause long enough to allow the story to land inside their body and have a shape and a form, because before we try to change the shape or the form, we really want to be present with what's arriving, what's here right now. And so I companion them, I elder them, I invite them to find their way in that hero's journey, depending on where they are in it, whether they're in their 20s or 30s or 60s or 80s,
Yeah. Across the generations.
It really is a time of moral courage. And we need elders to show up.
Mm-hmm.
The call is so strong. It's so strong. So that's what I've been doing. And I work, internationally now. So most of my families are all over the place.
Yeah. Well, now with the Zoom, people can find you, which is great. But so you are the space holder and the calling back the soul into the body to be present. And it feels like this, we can't come back and be present if there's nothing there to meet us. Right. So you're that safety that then gets cultivated across through and ripples into that space.
Yeah. So I'll give you kind of a little window in, maybe that'd help. So let's say somebody's talking to me and they're struggling in relationships within a family system. And they tell me a story, whatever the story is. And I ask them to slow down. And then I'll say, I really hear you. And I'm so glad you're here right now. And can we pause? Can you take me in? And do you notice what happens inside you when you really take me in? Notice that I'm hearing you. I'm really hearing you. And in that long pause, usually there's a lot of emotion. It's not about fixing that. I want to meet that and give it permission. Really, permission. Lots of pauses.
Mm-hmm. To feel and to be with. Yeah. So all that early attachment and relational support that was not there for most people is part of why people don't feel. And so you're coming in to whole systems now.
Yes.
And
yes. Whole
creating that. Yeah. And families. And what happens? So what, let's talk about the shepherding through something, be it, because I know you've been shepherding families through death and some really big events that are, I don't want to use the word traumatic, they're unusual events that bring the whole family together. And so you've worked with whole systems. And when you bring in that container and each person gets heard and you create that space for feeling like everything that's there can come in, what do you see happening?
Well, the first thing that happens is that everyone has their own reactions and their own emotions. And as I give permission to slow down, then it allows people to actually hear what's underneath the story. Because it's very easy to get caught up in the story. He said, she said, you don't understand. You're making me feel. It's not I feel, it's you made me feel. And I want to slow down the story enough so that we can go underneath that. And that takes some time. And it really means working with each person kind of individually and then pulling them together and finding a way to find each other underneath that story. And then lives change. I am often seen as the grandmother. And I think in a way my age gives me a platform to be able to hold that space and for them to trust me, honestly. It's always surprising to me how many men in their 60s, 70s, 80s will call me grandmother. And I'm thinking, not that much older than you, and in many cases younger, but it is the archetype. It's the archetype of that elder that says, I can hold your anger. It's all right for your anger to be here. And guess what? I'm not going to let it hurt somebody. I'm okay with who I am, and I can be in the room with who you are. And we're going to work together to be able to figure out where that hurt is. Because wherever the wound is where your gift is. And you just may not recognize it yet. So I do a lot of reframing, not bypassing, but reframing. So, for instance, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say I'm working with someone, and I will often be curious about their earliest beginnings, maybe their birth or their early childhood, to look for whatever the pattern is that's really showing up right now in the midst of their relationships. And let's say somebody says to me that in their early beginnings, they were born with the cord around their neck, and that they were blue, and they, clearly had a hard time arriving. And I say to them, wow, how has that affected you finding your voice and finding your agency in life? And do you find yourself pulling back rather than pushing forward into things? Do you hesitate to stand in your own integrity and agency, what happens to you? Because I'm curious whether you're afraid you might die if you push forward, or whether you get tight here when you really disagree. When we can uncover some of those unconscious patterns, it can awaken us to go, oh, I had no idea. And then we can soften into, and you don't have to do that anymore. What would it be like to take off the scarf that you wear around your neck so tightly? What would it be like to relax your vocal cords? And then we might play with some somatic exercises that help us feel that difference. And then, put our toe into speaking our truth and being heard. And so, sure, I'm weaving in my skills. I'm building some of the scaffolding to be able to heal some of those pieces. But then I can say that wound becomes your gift. It becomes your ability to listen and hear the truth of someone else. It becomes the authentic way you listen. And now you get to embellish that by learning how to speak it forth. And that can transform something that they were afraid of, that was hurting them, into something that actually becomes a gateway to releasing their spirit in a way that arrives in the world. Yeah.
So, supporting people in following that earliest wound as a metaphor to see what the story of the pain is and go head on with it. It sounds like, because there's no going around to bring forward the gift. Yeah, it feels like very delicate work and vulnerable work for people. So the space you create as the elder and the space holder is important for the safety, for that type of safety. And do you feel that that is a role that many women are being asked to step into at this time?
Well, I would actually say that I think we need men as well. I think both. I think we need elders. We need adults who are willing to actually grow up and step into their adulthood.
So as I hear you describe through both your cadence, your presence, your space holding, it makes me wonder if this is a need right now that many are recognizing and stepping into, or wanting mentoring to step into, or, that this is a pivotal piece of what will be needed in the world as we move through these big changes that are coming.
Yes, I really believe that there is a need and a call for eldership or elderhood. I call it eldership. That so many people are lacking a connection to an elder who can hold that space, who holds memory, who holds stories, who holds ancestral patterns, and certainly a moral courage, who can pass down the legacy of what it really means to be human. And honestly, people are hungry for it because we're living in this world where there's incredible grief and uncertainty. The world is dominated by powers that are much more vertical than horizontal, and people are hungry. Our moral fabric is amiss right now, and so people are seeking. But even religion is giving them a lot of rules and a lot of what I call yes and no's, all of this. And where are the people who hold the space for the questions to just be questions without needing an answer right away. An elder really doesn't do a lot of teaching, honestly. An elder holds the space and says, I'm here. We're going to make it through. And reminds us to be rooted in what really matters, and brings us back into the elements, connects us to rootedness into the earth, into what we've always known and we've just forgotten. Honestly, I think we're living at a time of forgetting, and an elder will call us to remember. Younger adults in their 40s are still kind of building status and building family. But an elder, I'm 70, an elder, I'm past that. I don't have to worry about creating a career or a family. All that's been done. Instead, I'm here to say, remember what it means to be human. Remember the planet and remember how important family is. When the fabric of family begins to fray, we will lose culture. And so as an elder, I'm calling other elders to rise up and speak up, because the younger generation needs us to remind them, what does it mean to really be a citizen of the world, and not just of ourselves and what we want or don't want. I mean, elders, remember, are closer to the veil of death. We're closer. We have already grieved the losses of what we could have had, could have been, should have done, didn't do. It's that season's over. Instead, it's time to help other people remember what they can do, what their choices are, and what does it mean to connect to soul, to spirit? What does it mean to be embodied? To grow some food and be in touch with your neighbor. What does it mean to check on a neighbor and see, does she need her walk shoveled? What does it mean to be a responsible human that cares for somebody that we disagree with? Can we slow down enough to look at the crazy things that are happening right now in the world and slow down, love one another? And I don't mean to bypass the awful things that are occurring. I don't. But I know that if I just get angry, things are not necessarily going to change. Let my internal anger move me to take action that builds reciprocity and builds relationship. And certainly I want to begin to do that at home first.
I often talk about in my programs, sacred eldership, and the idea of coming back to, rather than reacting, coming back to this question of, what is the right thing for me to do at this time? Because if we are reacting to the world, we are not in service of the greater good. We're in service of our nervous system at that point that is wanting something to be different, but it's not taking in the whole space and those around us. So I think we both navigate that word, sacred eldership and eldership, in different ways. I work with a lot of space holders that are serving in roles that are similar. They might not have the age, but they have this ability to hold space and to listen and to not fix. And so I think there's going to be different layers of this that start to be more and more important in the years ahead as the systems around us continue to fall apart. And we need a lot of different ways of being able to support communities and spaces.
I agree. It's interesting when I talk with somebody about this and I say how important it is to remember to live with gratitude and grace and compassion, sometimes what I hear is, oh, you're just bypassing, you're doing a spiritual bypass. We need you to get angry and go out and protest. And I will say, that may be the task of the youth, but my task as an elder is to hold the space so that there's something for you to come home to. And I think it's not that one is better than the other. It's simply different. And those of us who are called to space holding, we are really being asked to be the home so that someone has home to come home to, and so that we can remind them what it really feels like to be held, to be seen and heard, to be loved, and to know that in the midst of the war, in the midst of the chaos, there is a place where they can yield and feel held without being fixed, without being told they're wrong or the way they're doing it is wrong, but a place that they can come home to and be heard. And I attempt to do that because I work with people who have all kinds of different beliefs. They're across the board in terms of politics and religion and lifestyle. And to me, what's really important is that I help them remember who they are and how to come home to themselves in the midst of all that chaos. And people do. I mean, people who are in Lebanon talk to me, and the bombs are going off around them. And they have to find a way to come home to themselves and to know they're going to be all right. And the people that I talk to in Ecuador, or the folks that I'm working with in Israel, they all have different political and religious experiences in the world, but they're all human, and they all have chaos inside, and they all have grief and curiosity about how are we going to navigate this new world, because it is new. And the world around us in terms of the systems are dismantling. That doesn't mean humans are dismantling. The systems are dismantling as they need to. As they need to. We're at an age and a time when, in order for something new to rise, we're going to see a death. We're going to see a dismantling of the systems. But that has to happen in order for birth to occur. There's always death before birth. There's before we leave the womb is dark. It is it's a protected space, but we're going to die to that womb. We're never going back there. We're going to come out. It's going to be bright and different and new. Well, the same thing's happening in culture right now. Things are going to dismantle. And instead of being afraid of it, can we find a way home so that we're connected, so that we return to a family of some kind, whether that's the biological family you were born in, or whether that's the family of the community that you surround yourself with? Coming home is finding connection. It's finding connection to spirit, to soul, to body, to mind, to self, and to another, so that we're not alone at home. It really is. Can we really be okay in the midst of that? Well, that's regulating emotion in the midst, dysregulation.
And land, we can't forget land. That land is a relationship as well, right?
Oh, yes. Gosh.
So,
yes. Wow.
Yeah. So it feels like we are having a discussion then about finding the places where we are all human, regardless of what's happening around us, right? And finding the places to meet, even though we may all be very different and hold different frameworks on how we perceive life, but there's still some common threads between us. So you're a thread weaver, or a weaver of helping people weave their own blankets. Connection.
Yeah. I mean, I love that analogy. You do the same thing. We both are doing this now. The world needs the support because they don't know how to weave it. And if we can arrive and be with them, give them the hope through remembering that there's more here than the pain, that it's okay to be present with the pain. You don't have to get rid of it. We want to look for what else is here. For instance, let's say, in my background, you can see I have a tree. Okay. Now, well, maybe that tree takes up a good quarter of the view that you're seeing me. Well, there's more here than the tree. There's also the cabinets. There's also me. What else is here besides the pain? Well, there's lots more, but you might not be able to find it alone. And so I see my role as helping you remember to find your way to the earth, to feel the elements of water and fire again, and the healing nature of fire and water and earth and air and ether. To remember, what does it really mean to be human? It's not really fixing everything and making it the way you want it. It is being willing to really be present with the way it is. We can get angry about it. We can feel sad about it. We can be scared about it. And we can know that we have the resiliency to be here now. We do. We have the resiliency. We wouldn't be here. There is more here than the fear or the anger or the grief.
You remind me a lot when I hear Lawrence, is his name Lawrence Weller? Francis Weller. Yeah. Who does a lot of grief. Weller. He does a lot of space holding for grief work. So where do elders go? I'm thinking about the people I know. Aside from me, are you shepherding and sitting with the elders to help them come into their eldership?
Yes, I am. Actually, for me, it is the sacred journey of connecting to I'm going to call it trying to think of the right word. It's the sacred journey of being at the edge, right where that veil is. And I kind of go through the veil and back again a lot. It's being willing to drink from the well of death and of life, to sit and know I can have a foot in both at the same time. It is learning to be at peace with silence. It's being grateful. It's living in the pause. It's remembering ritual. Because, we've lost a connection to those initiations, the thresholds that help guide us from one season to the next. Elderhood is our wintering years, and they're sacred. They are really sacred. So, finding that is not found in the busyness of status building or fixing the generation below us. It's really exploring the edge of ancestors and what it's going to be like on the other side.
Now, because of your own experience, if I may say here, of having had some experience on the other side or at that edge, you probably have a little more tolerance than the average person to the concept of death. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So for your listeners, I had a near-death experience many, many years ago, over 20 years ago. had a car accident, and my experience was that I died and chose to come back. And for me, death was amazing. It was amazing. It is not Hollywood, though, I will tell you. I was not looking down at my body in the car. I was not thinking about anything that had to do with Earth. I wasn't thinking. I was in this vast expanse of bright light and incredible connection to love. There are no words, like many of us who've had a near-death experience. The words don't work. They don't work. It was awesome. It was amazing. It's great. It's great. And it gave me the gift of choosing life, because before that, I really didn't want to be here. It was chaotic. The world was painful. There wasn't much here that made me want to stay. And so when I arrived, it was like, yay, you're finally here, and I felt very connected to God, very connected to spirit, to source, to infinity, really, infinity. It was like outside of time, outside of anything that's ordinary at all. And again, it wasn't like I was inhabiting a form. There was no form. There was just light. That's all there was. And a sense of being connected somehow to being loved and received. And again, there are no words to describe it because it wasn't embodied. And so connection here on the earth plane is embodied, but it wasn't. So anyway, my experience was that in that amazing few minutes, I became willing to live, willing wholeheartedly to live. And I never wanted to before. And so instantly I found myself back in the car, and I did not tell anyone for years. It was only a couple years ago that I started to talk about it. I didn't tell my children or my family. I guess I just didn't think it was anything anybody would believe. But it informed who I became afterwards. It changed my life. There's the before that and there's the after that. Because now, being here, I'm not afraid of death at all. I do work with people who are dying and people who are grieving the loss. And I've been present at deaths. I've worked with families right after suicide and murder and really complicated deaths. And I've shepherded them through that. I'm very comfortable in a room where there's that kind of intense emotion because I'm not afraid of it. I see it as a passage into another dimension, and it's fabulous. And I see my time here as a time to elder and care for others while I'm here so that they aren't afraid of it. It's just,
yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. I was going to ask, is that part of the role of the sacred elder, or to help, to shepherd? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I believe so. Mostly because I believe when we are inhabiting our eldership in our body, in our form, we know that the form is shrinking away. We know that any status ego we had has no more meaning anymore. That we are really here to be generative. Legacy is to really companion the young now and help them so that they're not afraid. And that means that we have to look at our own fears of death. And a lot of the people I work with are very afraid of death. They're afraid that they haven't fulfilled their purpose. They're afraid that, or they feel guilty or shame. They get up to the door of death and they're terrified of it. There are some who feel pretty confident that they know what's going to happen on the other side, but they're afraid of the pain. And what I will say to them is, your body really knows how to die. You don't have to worry about this. The body knows how to do it. And a lot of the time, the big pain that you're afraid of isn't there, actually, because the body knows how to shut down its systems to avoid.
Yeah, I would say in my life prior to the last few years where I watched two people at their bedside pass, I also had a lot of fear. But in watching them pass and watching the stages of what the body does, it took the fear out of me. But we don't often do that. Often when people pass, they're, sequestered in a hospital or tucked away somewhere. And so we don't normalize that process of watching the transgression or of just being there with the body after either. That's just not part of our Western culture.
It's too bad, because it's the most sacred thing we could do is to be present at birth, out of a hospital, hopefully, and present at death out of a hospital.
And you've washed the bodies of people who've passed.
Oh yeah. It was the first time I did it. It was kind of spontaneous. We were waiting. I was with the wife and the wife's best friend and the deceased sister. And I just looked at them and I said, we do not have to call hospice right away. We need to just be still and really be here. And then I said, we're the women. We can wash him. He's not going to mind, And so we did. And it was beautiful, because at one point, the wife comes up to this little penis and says, oh, that's mine, And then she says goodbye. And the sacredness of each member of the body saying goodbye to the feet, saying goodbye to the hand, washing it, feeling it, really coming in contact and touching, saying goodbye to the eyes, and then dressing him and being able to be there long enough to feel how his spirit fills the room. His essence is present all around, because alchemy has happened. And to really come into contact with the change when he's no longer in form. And we still have to grieve and let go of our connection to form. He may be formless, but our connection is still to form. And we need time to be with that transition.
We've compressed the whole process. We've farmed it out to hospice, and then we've compressed it all. Ugh. So it's so beautiful. I mean, when you talk about it, it just sounds beautiful. So, but we need people to help. I know there's more and more people I'm meeting that are calling themselves death doulas and Sherpas. And so it is so important. It's part of the cultural shift.
Yeah. Sometimes I am on the phone and I'm not there because they're in another country or another state. And so I walk them through what to do next, to pay attention to hands and feet and to color of skin and to notice breath and to be patient and not try to fix it. Don't necessarily quickly try to fix it. Really allow the body to do what the body knows to do rather than interrupting it. And notice how they feel. Notice their own tears and their own fears and what it really means to detach from someone we love so much.
Thank you. You've given us just some space to let this very normal aspect of the human experience to bring it to life a little and give us permission to be in it. We could talk and talk and talk, Kate, but I am going to find a way to wrap this up, because it feels like the sum of what we have talked about has a lot to do with these core aspects of being human that we have forgotten because of advancements in, the world and the pace and the evolution. It's like we have all these wonderful accomplishments and things that we have done, but there's some foundational pieces of being human that have gotten put on the wayside or washed away, or maybe we just haven't had them for so long that we have forgotten that they even existed. So you're reminding us and helping us remember these things that are already embedded in us as humans. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I really do think that what's happening in the world and what's coming, because surely much is coming, and we need to be reminded that being human is the merge of spirit in form, and form is connected to earth elements and to the energetic world. And coming home to self is all of that inside relationship. Healing happens inside relationship, in relationship to self, to spirit, to the earth, to being human.
Thank you, Kate. Where can people find you or find more about your work if they're interested?
Well, I would say check out my website. I don't do a lot of marketing yet, but my website is kate-appleton.com, and they could find me there. I do have a blog that's there. Eventually, I will have a Substack. I am writing a book, but I'm slow in sort of how people find me at.
Well,
I also teach a course with my son called Attachment and Somatics, which I forgot to say.
Yes,
look at that.
You have a fabulous duo here at Trauma and Somatics. So please look up Kate there with Will Brazen and find her at her website, and we'll put some information in the show notes if you're interested. Thank you, Kate, for this rich discussion. I'll have to bring you back so we can continue and take another bite out of this beautiful meal that you've started to lay out on sacred eldership. And I hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.